guys, welcome back to The Bright Side. Macy here, The Bright Side Girl, and today we're going to be going over everything I read for Randomathon Round 2 Food Edition. Randomathon is my readathon that changes themes every round. This was round 2 and it was all themed around food. Books with food on the cover, books about food, set in a restaurant, all of that goodness. We had an interesting readathon overall. I will link both of the reading vlogs in case you want to see me talk about these books like while I was reading them. And I have some other recommendation videos and things as well in case you want to add some to your TBR. But we're going to go over everything that I read for the readathon in order from least favorite to favorite. I do read more than usual during the readathon, as that is kind of the point of the readathon, is to read a little bit more and to read things that are kind of specific and kind of immerse myself in the theme. I did pretty much all of these on audiobook, and I can do that while I'm working and cleaning and doing all of the things, so that's why I'm able to get through so many. But we're just going to dive right in. So I actually had 2 DNFs for Randomathon, which was a little bit unfortunate. I don't think I've had any other DNFs this year. Both of these were a little bit more of a me thing than they were the book's fault, and I'll go over that in a second. I am glad that I'm getting these books off of my physical TBR though. Okay, so we have The Sugar Queen by Sarah Addison Allen. This one was very surprising to me because I absolutely loved Garden Spells, which is a different novel that she has. It has some like witchy food magic, and it was just really, really fabulous. One of my favorite food themed books. So I was very excited to get into this one. It was pitched as like a young woman reading like trashy romance novels in her closet while she like eats snacks, and then this random lady appears that becomes kind of like her fairy godmother. That is basically how this was pitched. It's not entirely wrong. So this one is an adult novel. It's basically like a chick lit kind of cozy fantasy. However, it didn't give me as many like cozy warm vibes as I got from Garden Spells, and we did talk about food quite a bit in here, which I did enjoy, but I just wasn't really invested in the characters. So in this one we're following 27-year-old Josie, and she is a sorry excuse for a Southern belle, and she secretly eats sweets in the privacy of her hidden closet. Josie is settled into an uneventful life in her mother's house. Her one consolation is a stockpile of sugary treats and paperback romances that she escapes to each night, until she finds her closet harboring none other than local waitress Della Lee Baker, a tough-talking, tender-hearted woman who is 1 part nemesis and 2 parts fairy godmother. So in this one, we're kind of following 3 or 4 different women. We're mostly following Josie. They all have different kind of hardships that they're working through. There is like a little side romance in here. It's definitely not a spicy romance. It's very like clean and sweet. But we followed a little bit more of their dark pasts than I preferred. I wouldn't call this a heavy book, but it wasn't quite as like cozy and sweet as I wanted it to be. And I just really did not feel any attachment to any of the characters. So I know a lot of people that do really enjoy this book, especially if you like kind of cozy, sweet, simple reads. I did do something I never do. I got 150 pages into this, and then I decided to go to the end and read like the last couple chapters to see what happened with one of the plots, because I wanted to know what happened with one plot because I was interested, but I was too lazy to finish reading the book, especially when I only physically read like maybe 1 book a week right now. So I went and I read the end, and I did really enjoy the ending of it. I liked where the plot wrapped up and how it wrapped up. I just didn't really enjoy the overall journey to get there, unfortunately. So this was a DNF for me, and I don't rate DNF books. All right, next we have Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. This is well beloved by so many people, and I knew going into this that it might not be for me. So a lot of people said that this book has made them cry, which could go one of 2 ways for me. It depends on why it made them cry. So I was already kind of nervous, and then my mom tried to watch the TV show and she said she couldn't finish it. She didn't really tell me why. I heard that it was kind of brutal. So this one is set in the 60s, and we are following chemist Elizabeth Zott. She is on an all-male team for Hastings Research Institute, which takes a very unscientific view of equality. Except for one, Calvin Evans, the lonely, brilliant, Nobel Prize nominated grudge holder who falls in love with all of the things her mind. True chemistry result. A few years later, Elizabeth Zott finds herself not only a single mother, but also the reluctant star of America's most beloved cooking show, Supper at 6. Elizabeth's unusual approach to cooking, combining 1 tablespoon acetic acid with a pinch of sodium chloride, proves revolutionary, but as her following grows, not everyone is happy because as it turns out, Elizabeth isn't teaching women to cook, she's daring them to change the status quo. So we have a lot of like women's struggles and rights from the 60s, and while I do think that's an important thing to talk about. It's just not something that I love to read about. I generally don't like to read darker, difficult topics that are too realistic, like a vampire killed your mom, your house burned down, your parents got killed by a wizard. I'm there. But I usually don't like to read realistic, hard topics like abuse and trauma and things. And the beginning of this book, like within the first couple chapters, there was an almost rape scene and abuse scene with Elizabeth and one of her colleagues. And I just got the sense that this book was going to be just too dark for me. It was really well written and I was enjoying the audiobook narrator, but just the subject matter, and I felt like it was just beginning with how hard her life was going to be. It just wasn't something that I wanted to continue in. So just be aware of the trigger warning. This is an adult book, so it has those harder hitting topics. If you love those kinds of reads, you would probably really enjoy this one because I know it's really well written and really well beloved. I just like to go on more grand adventures usually when I go into my books. No 1-star reads per usual, but I did have one 2-star read. I've had more 2 stars than I normally do, but it's because I'm branching out a little bit more, and that was The Dinner Guests by Kirsten Modglin. It was probably more like a 2.5. This is an adult thriller and we're set in this neighborhood. There's a family that wasn't too well liked, but they were kind of known in the neighborhood, and they move out, and then these new mysterious neighbors move in and they start kind of building this wall around their house and weird things happen. They don't introduce themselves to anyone, and then closest neighbors get an invitation to dinner. And all these neighbors kind of grew up together and they know each other, and they're all kind of gossiping about the new neighbor and worried about whether they should go and offended that they hadn't come over to deliver the invitation. And they all wind up going to dinner, and then things kind of go wild from there. Not a heavily food themed book. I was hoping there would be a little bit more on the dinner portion, but that ends a little bit quickly. This book was just kind of weird. Narrators were not my favorite. They read it almost in like a juvenile way, but that could have been the writing as well, because the characters were all in their like upper 20s to upper 30s. They were all full adults and had kids and things, but they sounded so juvenile and high school the way that they talked about each other. I do know some adults that are like this, but it was very odd because it felt like a YA book, but it wasn't. And the mystery thriller part was just really odd, and the way that they went into the backstories of what happened. I just didn't really care enough about the characters to be concerned about them or to be interested in the grand reveal. And then it was just very unbelievable in the end about what happened, which I don't always mind. I read a book at the beginning of the year called The Family Game by Catherine Steadman, which was absolutely wild and ridiculous, and I loved it. I just had the best time with it. But this one, I just didn't care enough about anything that was happening to really connect to it in any way. It was just kind of all over the place, so unfortunately it didn't really work well for me, but thankfully it was a short read. Next, we're going to go into the graphic novels, which were all between a 3 and a 4-star. So I read Battle Royale. This was a cute young adult graphic novel following 2 characters, one whose mother owns like a cafe, and then the other character works at the cafe and she really wants to be a baker. I think at this point she's just like a waitress, so she doesn't do anything in the kitchen, and they wind up teaming up together to go to a reality cooking competition show to win some money to help save the restaurant and like go to college and all those good things. It was really fun. It was very food driven and the art was really great, so I gave this one 4 stars. Then we have The Baker and the Bard. I enjoyed this one. I really liked the art, but it wasn't really about the baking like I was expecting based on the cover and the title. The premise of the book is that these 2 characters have a friend that is a baker. She gets an order from this really wealthy lady that wants this specific menu item that requires these special mushrooms that glow in the dark, and these 2 friends go off in the forest to try and find these mushrooms, and they kind of run into a fairy and go on an adventure. So not as much about the food as I would have wanted, but it was really whimsical and fun, and I gave it 3.5 stars. Next, we have The Princess and the Grilled Cheese. This one was so cute. This one's following, I believe, a countess, and she is unable to inherit her father's money because she is a woman. She doesn't want to marry a man because she likes women, and so instead she decides to disguise herself as a man and live somewhere else, and that way she'll be able to inherit her father's money. This is his idea as well, and he's about to pass away. So when she does this, she winds up interacting with the princess of this mythical land and falling for her, but the princess doesn't know that she is actually a girl. It was really charming and cute overall. The art was really fun. We had a lot of funny names in here, like everyone had different like cheese names, and the towns had different cheese names, and that was really, really cute. They ate a ton of grilled cheeses. The romance was really sweet, and I gave it 4 stars. All right, next we're gonna jump into the 3-star stars, which I think is the majority of what I read. That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon. This was like my smutty, spicy book for the year. I usually read one or two to kind of dip my toes in the water because it's really just not my thing, but some of them are more mild than others. This one I heard was really hilarious and it had a fun premise, so that was why I dove into it. So we're following Cinnamon, who is a spice farmer, and one day the village has like a attack happen and she is drunk when this happens and she winds up accidentally saving a demon, mistaking him for a person, and then something happens and he goes and tries to kill her, and they wind up connecting in the end and having to do a journey to kind of try and save the town, and it is just really, really funny and cute. This one would have been a 5-star for me if it hadn't been spicy or smutty, and I hate saying that because I knew that it was going into it, but the first half of the book was pretty mild and it had a full actual plot and lovable characters, which I find is sometimes lacking in the spicy books that I have tried. The world was fully fleshed out and really fun and magical. There were all these different creatures and magical beings, and there were a bunch of food references as well, like her friend was also named Bree, and I really liked our demon in here. He was really cute, but there were like 4 or 5 spicy scenes. They were very explicit and long, and so I wound up skipping through some of them because I wanted to get to the actual plot of the story. So this one landed at a 3-star for me, but if you do enjoy like a spicy, smutty book and you want something that's really cute and charming, then you would probably really love this one. And the narrator for That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon was really, really good. She did such a good job and I feel like she captured the book really well. Next we have Midsummer Mayhem, and this is a middle grade novel. This is a loose Midsummer Night's Dream retelling. We have 11-year-old Mimi, and she comes from a big Indian American family. She's the youngest of 4 and she feels invisible, but her dream of proving herself seems possible when she enters a contest at the brand new bakery in town. But when Mimi's dad, a renowned food writer, mysteriously loses his highly honed sense of taste, she worries she'll never be able to bake something impressive enough to propel her to gastronomic fame. So she enters this cute little baking competition. There are so many baking food references in here, but we have this awesome little Midsummer Night's Dream retelling aspect in this magical woods, and it was just really, really charming. I really liked the narrator for this one. She was really fabulous, and I wound up giving it 3.5 stars. All right, next we have The Tempest of Tea by Hafsa Fazil. This was the Fairy Loot pick for February. I was so excited to get to it because it is absolutely gorgeous. This one was pitched as a tea shop that moonlights as a vampire speakeasy at night, and also there's a heist. So like loose Six of Crows vibes. I struggle with Hafsa's writing style. I read We Hunt the Flame twice and something about it just does not latch on to my brain. It's descriptive and can be a little bit slower, and a lot of people absolutely love her books and people are really loving this one, but I had similar feelings to We Hunt the Flame that I did with this one, where I just kind of struggled to fully connect to it. The narrator was really, really good. The writing was good. The descriptions were good. I really liked the tea shop setting and the heist, and I really did like the ending. But unfortunately right now it's like a 3.5 star for me. I do plan on rereading this in the future before the next book comes out. I have a feeling it could grow on me once I kind of like fully latch onto the story, and honestly I just really wanted to because I want to keep it because it's so pretty. So don't let this review discourage you because so many people are loving this book. There's just something about her writing hasn't like fully clicked with me yet. So right now a 3.5, but to be determined. Next we have All These Things I Have Done by Gabrielle Zevin. This is the first in a young adult trilogy. This one is set, I believe, in like 2083, where caffeine and chocolate are illegal. Our main character's family owns a chocolate manufacturing company, kind of like mafia style. They make chocolate for other countries. Her parents are both murdered though by other people in this kind of like mafia situation. Her brother gets accidentally shot in the head. He becomes mentally challenged, and then she's also taking care of her grandmother who is kind of on her deathbed. One day her ex-boyfriend gets poisoned by a bar of chocolate that she gave him illegally, and she is suspected to be the murderer. So you're kind of uncovering that mystery. All of that sounds really, really great. However, this book was mostly about her home life and relationships. There's a little romance in here and just like almost about like growing up. It was less about the mafia and the future and the chocolate and the murder than it was about just like her life as a teenager, which was kind of unfortunate because I was really looking forward to having some really fun vibes, like dystopian element, but they just wasn't a ton there. I did enjoy the writing and I was enjoying reading it. It just wasn't what I expected. I do plan on reading the second book in the series to see kind of where it goes. Hopefully we get a little bit more of the mafia chocolate dystopian vibes that I was looking looking for. There was a plot very early on in the beginning that looked really cool, and then it like completely changed and went back to her like kind of taking care of her family and like going to school. It read a little bit more like a contemporary for that reason, so I gave it a 3.5. But I did like the narrator. All right, moving on to the 4 stars, we have Before the Coffee Gets Cold by, I don't want to butcher their name, so I'm not going to pronounce it. This is the first in a quartet. I believe that they're connected, but I don't know that they follow the same characters. So this has such a unique premise. I was so excited for it. This one is set in a coffee shop that has the ability to send you back in time, but you have to sit in this particular seat and you must return back before your coffee gets cold. So when you sit down, they pour you a cup of coffee and you have to return before it gets cold. Also, you can only go back in time to the cafe. You can't go anywhere different, and you can only go there if you have been there before. So we're following, I think, 3 different people that all want to do this, and you're basically uncovering their story about why they want to do it, even though it will not change anything in the future. So they can go back and do this, but nothing that they do in the past will change the future. And so you're kind of following them and learning their stories as you go. Things kind of interconnect and weave. There's really cool elements of the rules of the time travel, and it's very, very neat. It is absolutely beautifully written, but it is a little bit on the sad side, which I don't always love, so that kept it from being a 5-star for me. But a lot of people absolutely adore this book. I did give it a 4 stars, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. It was beautifully done. Next, we have In the Shadow Garden by Liz Parker. I kind of picked this one up on a whim, and it was definitely a little bit more garden nature-esque than it was about food, but we do follow this kind of witchy family that owns a tea shop and has this kind of magical garden. They have the ability to remove people's memories and help with their emotions by drinking the tea that is from their garden. And then their neighbors run a bourbon distillery, and you're basically following this kind of like small town drama as the bourbon distillery's younger son returns back after being gone for a while. When he comes back, not many people remember him, which is kind of strange, and all these different like mysteries and things kind of get uncovered. There's a lot of like small town drama and gossip, but in a really fun, cute, cozy way. And this was really like cozy and cute, but also had a really good plot with some really cool twists in here that I really enjoyed and didn't see coming. And I just thought it was like really delightful and fun. It had really good descriptions of the garden and the food and the bourbon, and I enjoyed the romance in here. I liked the characters, so I wound up giving this one 4 stars, and the narrator was pretty good. Then I got halfway through My Fine Fellow, which would have been my favorite read of the readathon if I had finished it. I'm still reading it currently. I just am so slow with physically reading, but I am loving it so much. It has the most food elements of any of the books that I have read. This is basically a My Fair Lady retelling, but set in a culinary institute, and we have 2 like chef culinary ladies that are training this ragamuffin young boy from the street to cook, but also integrate into society because he wants to open like his own, I think, empanada shop. It's so cute. They describe the way they cut onions and the way they bake the pastries, and it is just delightful and scrumptious and so cute. It would be perfect for a retoldathon, my retelling readathon happening in the fall. And as of right now, it might be a 5-star read. Stay tuned for the full review because I'll talk about it in my April or May reading wrap up. Then lastly, we have Hungry Hearts, which was my favorite read of the readathon. This is 13 Tales of Food and Love. I actually almost unhauled this one. I think I even talked about it in my unhaul video. And this is a YA anthology, and this is all set on Hungry Heart Row, which I loved this concept so much. All of them are set on this Hungry Heart Row, and so they all kind of interconnect because there's all these different like pastry shops, and there's different kinds of bakeries and cafes and restaurants, and so they're all kind of interconnected because of this. All the short stories have different narrators, and I loved almost all of the short stories. Like, it was so good. It was almost a 5-star read for me. They were all so food oriented, but they had very different elements. We had one in here that had kind of a Chinese mafia situation. We had one in here that had a slight horror element. We had some with romance. We had some with growing up. All different kinds of food and cultures, magic, and it was just so delightful. I had such a good time reading this, and it is now one of my favorite anthologies. I had the same feelings about this that I did with My True Love Gave to Me, which was a Christmas anthology. It was excellent. Sometimes these young adult anthologies, because the books are short, they try to like pack a really impactful punch, and they can be really like dark and sad, and I didn't find that with this one. It was just really, really fun for the most part. Some of the stories were a little bit darker and hard-hitting, but overall they were just done so well, and I loved it, and I gave it 4 stars. Okay, you guys, so that is everything I read for Randomathon Food Edition. I was not feeling the best during this readathon, unfortunately, and it didn't go quite how I wanted it, which is totally fine. That happens. But I do want to do this again sometime in the future. I'm just not sure where I'm going to be able to squeeze it in because I have a lot of ideas for next year's Randomathon. I don't think we'll do any more rounds for this year because I don't want to overwhelm myself. Let me know your thoughts and feelings about Randomathon down below. I know we're going to be doing at least 2 next year. I would like to do 3. I believe I can squeeze that in, all with different themes. Let me know, is that too many readathons? Because if we do 3, that'll be 9 readathons. You obviously don't have to do them all if you don't want to, but let me know if you like having this many or if you feel better with having less. Let me know if there's a readathon that you would like to replace. I thought about swapping Retoldathon for Randomathon this year, but you guys really love Retoldathon and we've only done it once, so I do think we're going to keep it. So just let me know all your thoughts and feelings. Would you like me to make the readathon shorter and turn them into a week? Would you like me to do 4 Randomathons next year? Just let me know how you're feeling because I have so many fun ideas that I'm already preparing for. Stay tuned for Hikeathon, which is my next readathon. The announcement is already up. This is my favorite readathon that we do, so I'm very excited for it. Let me know your favorite book of the readathon down below if you participated. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at The Bright Side Girl, and I will see you guys next time on The Bright Side.